Madam Secretary, is it time for us to have a dialogue about the deployment of American ground troops to engage ISIS in kinetic activities?
You sound like a vet. Yes. Thank you for your service, and thank you for your question. Look, we have that kind of conversation all the time. Having been a United States Senator from New York after 9/11, having been the Secretary of State who spent a lot of her time in the Situation Room, we have that constant dialogue. Right now, I don't think the conditions are in place, and I would not support that. I believe that what we're seeing now is a continuing effort to put advisors, spotters for fighter attacks on locations, if we can figure out where they are, trainers to do what needs to be done with the Iraqi army. And we have about 4,500 Americans in Iraq right now. I would not put a single additional person in for actual combat at this time. I do not think that is called for at this time. And I would say this, the situation on the ground is incredibly complex. It's made more so with the Russian actions, because they're not only flying now sorties. In fact, the young man from Turkey knows the Turkish Air Force had to intercept Russian fighters because they were invading Turkish airspace. This is such a complicated situation now. First, we've got to sort it out. Our goal has to be to end the conflict, protect people on the ground, go after ISIS, get a diplomatic solution which ends with the departure of Assad. Those, to me, are what we have to achieve. And any of those, I don't believe, is, at this point, furthered by putting more American troops in a combat role. The Iraqi army has to step up. The Sunni fighters in Anbar province have to step up. The Peshmerga, which are the Kurdish fighters, have to be better armed and supported because they actually will fight. And we have to, deconflict, as they say. We have to deconflict amongst and between the folks on the ground in Syria who cross over into Iraq and back and forth. So this is, to me, right now, not yet in any way ready for any kind of action by us. I think that would be ill-advised at this time. I do believe, and I've said this, that we should be putting together a coalition to support a no-fly zone. Because look, I think it's complicated, and the Russians would have to be part of it or it wouldn't work. But I think we have to make a very strong case for it. The Turks are flying. The Iraqi Air Force is actually flying. We have the French. We have the British. We have others in the airspace. We need to try to set up and enforce a no-fly zone to try to stop the outflow of refugees so people can stay at home, to try to stabilize the situation on the ground, prevent Assad's Air Force from continuing to bomb his own people by setting up safe areas, trying to prevent the Russians, who are not really going after ISIS, they're going after opponents of Assad. So that's why we got to figure out what's going on in the air. We got to figure out what's going on with the other elements on the ground before we do anything, and I'm not inclined to do anything that would require American boots on the ground for combat. Let's see, I saw this hand, yeah. Here comes the microphone.
Hi, my beautiful granddaughter here is 2.5. Can you?
She is beautiful, too.
Thank you. Tell me your plans on not only making education affordable, but also safe, and your thoughts on gun control.
Well, unfortunately, those two questions really go together, don't they? Yesterday in New Hampshire, I rolled out my plan to try to move against the scourge of gun violence in our country and to get back to sensible gun safety measures. And I have long